My name is Aria Sloan. I'm 18 years old and I live in the suburbs of Charleston, South Carolina. To most people, I'm the quiet older sister. Too studious, nothing remarkable, except a few books and dreams too big for this small town. But to my family, especially my mom, I'm worse than invisible. I'm the shadow of my younger sister, a name only mentioned when blame needs to be assigned. Elena, my sister. 16 years old, with hair as golden as summer sunlight and a smile sweet like syrup on Sunday morning pancakes. She never has to try, just walking into a room draws every eye. Since we were kids, Elena has always been overly adored, while I learned to step back and make space. I used to believe that if I just tried harder, was more obedient, maybe one day mom would hold me the way she always holds Elena. But no. No matter how many perfect scores I earned, how many writing competitions I won, or how early I submitted applications to Ivy League schools, it never measured up to a single goal scored by Elena in her high school soccer game. And it didn't stop at favoritism. Last year, my state-level science fair project, a model for purifying water using activated charcoal, was accidentally doused with acid minutes before my presentation. At first, I thought it was just a mistake until I realized Elena had been there, alone, right before me. When I confronted her, she shrugged. "You always assume the worst. Maybe you were just clumsy." I never told anyone, because if I did, I'd once again be seen as the jealous older sister, envious of the shining star. But this time, I wasn't going to stay silent. A week ago, I got an email from Sapienza University, one of the most prestigious schools in Rome, Italy, offering me a full-ride scholarship to their global policy program. Only 3 American students are selected each year. I couldn't believe my name was there. And I didn't tell anyone. Not because I didn't want to share, but because I knew exactly what would happen if Elena or my mom found out before I left. They would ruin it. They always found a way. So I kept it a secret. I prepared everything in silence. Passport, visa, plane ticket, medical forms. I applied for early withdrawal from high school, asked the principal to keep things confidential, and even arranged housing at the student residence in Trastevere. I had planned it all, almost all. Just 1 week left until I fly. I was counting down the days like they were the final heartbeats before my freedom. But I forgot one thing. In this house, secrets never stay hidden for long. When Elena started asking why I wasn't going to her Sweet 16 party, why I was printing so many documents at the library, and why there was a new suitcase under my bed, I knew. I had less than 7 days to escape the place that had suffocated me for 18 years, and I wasn't going to let anyone, especially Elena, stop me again. Just 2 days left before my flight to Rome. On Thursday morning, I woke up early to recheck the documents in my navy blue travel folder, the one that held my passport, visa, and flight ticket. I clearly remembered reviewing everything the night before, right before bed, but when I unzipped it, my heart stopped. The passport was gone. I tore through every drawer, my backpack, desk, dresser, even under my mattress, nothing. I felt the blood in my veins freeze. No way. I ran downstairs, my voice shaking. "Mom, have you seen my passport?" She was slicing cucumbers in the kitchen, didn't even look up. "Did you lose something again?" "Probably just misplaced it. You get scatterbrained when you're stressed." I bit my lip, stopping myself from screaming. Not this time. I knew I hadn't been careless. As I turned toward the stairs, I caught Elena standing on the landing, phone in hand, giggling. She was wearing a new tracksuit, the kind that could only be bought with the money I had saved for textbooks. She looked at me and smirked. "Looking for something?" I narrowed my eyes. "You were in my room yesterday, weren't you?" "Whose room?" Elena stepped back with a mock expression of shock. "You mean the room of our little scholarship genius?" My anger surged. I knew that look. I saw it when my science fair model caught fire. I saw it when my prom dress got bleached. And now, there it was again, with that same smug satisfaction. Before I could respond, Mom called from the living room. "Aria, come down now. Your father wants to talk." Wants to talk in our house meant family court is in session. All three were already seated on the sofa. My father, Gerald, still in his business suit, face stern like he was cross-examining someone in court. Mom sat with arms crossed. Elena, already working up fake tears. I stood still, heart pounding like a drum. "What did you do with your passport?" Dad asked bluntly. I swallowed. "I didn't do anything, it disappeared, someone took it." Elena burst into tears. Her performance almost made me step back. I don't know why she thinks I had anything to do with it. I just wanted to support her, even though she's never cared about me. Mom wrapped her arms around her like she was a hostage survivor. "Aria, how could you accuse your sister of something like this?" I stood frozen. "I know what I'm saying. Enough." Dad cut me off. "No one in this family stole your passport. Maybe this is a sign that you're not supposed to go." "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe it's God's will," Mom added, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Maybe you're running from something. Maybe God is asking you to stop and reflect." I laughed. Dry, bitter. It startled even me. "God didn't take my passport, Elena did." Elena jumped to her feet. "And why do you have to ruin everything? I'm the one under pressure. I was just appointed youth group leader at church. I've never been abroad, never had a scholarship." I looked around the room, taking in their faces, and I understood. They didn't want me to go. They didn't want me to escape the small town, where I could prove I was good enough, even better than their golden girl. I did everything right. I applied. I earned this, and no matter who tries to stop me, I'm still going. Dad stood up, pointing toward the stairs. "Go to your room. Think about your attitude, Aria." I turned around and walked away, every step heavy as lead. But in my heart, one thing was now certain. I won't let them lock me up ever again. And if they think I don't have a way out, then they've clearly forgotten that I always have a backup plan. I stepped into my room and closed the door gently, as if a single sharp sound could cause everything to collapse. But in truth, my mind had never been clearer. I wasn't panicking, I wasn't trembling. I was no longer the girl who backed down every time she was dismissed. I pulled out my phone and texted the only person I trusted. "Code Verde, ready?" The message went to Ben, my best friend since elementary school, and the only one who knew the full story about the scholarship, the flight, and the backup passport. It was marked seen within 2 seconds. His reply came almost instantly. "Plan Verde confirmed, backup secured, let's flip the script." I smiled. Back in February, right after receiving the acceptance from Sapienza, I had quietly submitted a request for a new passport, claiming the original was lost. I paid extra for expedited processing and asked Ben to receive it for me at his cousin's address in Wilmington. The second passport had been in my hands since mid-April, sealed in plastic and safely hidden behind the whiteboard mounted in my bookshelf, an untouched spot. I lifted the whiteboard. It was still there. Clean. Not a single scratch, and this time, I wasn't letting it out of my hands. That evening, we all sat down for dinner as if nothing had happened. My mom poured lemonade for Elena, my dad skimmed a local newspaper. Elena, of course, threw me a smug, victorious glance. "So what's your plan?" Mom asked, her voice unusually gentle. "If you can't find your passport, maybe it's time to call and withdraw from the program." I set my chopsticks down and wiped my mouth. "Already found it." All three of them looked up at once. Mom blinked. I pulled out my phone, tapped a few buttons, and held up a photo of the new passport. Clear, dated, alongside the receipt from Immigration Services. Application filed on February 17th, issued April 29th. I let them stare at it for a good moment before I spoke. I knew this might happen. And this time, I wasn't letting anyone sabotage it. Dad furrowed his brow. "What are you saying? Are you blaming your own family?" I let out a small laugh. Not bitter, just the kind that comes from someone finally awake. "Do you think it's blame?" I'm just stating facts. Mom said I lost my phone when Elena dropped it in the bathtub. I got scolded for my prom dress getting bleached, right when Mom had Elena do laundry. Elena clenched her glass. You're paranoid. You always think everyone's against you. I don't need everyone against me, I replied. Just one sister, smart enough to cover her tracks, fake tears well enough, and lucky enough to always be forgiven. Silence. Mom looked at me with wide, panicked eyes. Dad leaned back as if trying to piece everything together. Aria. You're being completely unreasonable, Mom said, trying to keep her tone calm. We're just worried about you. You're still young. Rome isn't easy. I looked her straight in the eye. No, you're not worried about me. You're worried about the family image. You're worried that if I succeed, people will start asking why I had to run in the first place. Do you really believe what you're doing is right? Dad asked sternly. Yes, because for once, I prepared to be betrayed. I stood up, pulled from my jacket the plane ticket, the scholarship letter, and laid them on the table. This is everything I earned, on my own, and no matter who cries, plays the victim, or preaches morals, this Saturday morning, I'm getting on that plane. Elena slammed her hand on the table. Who do you think you are? Running away in the name of success? That doesn't make you great. I bowed my head slightly, then said quietly but clearly, no, I'm the last person in this house who stayed silent, and you'll never get back that perfect image you destroyed yourself. That night, I sat in my room, slipped the passport, the acceptance letter, and the ticket into a sealed envelope, then packed it carefully in my backpack. My phone lit up again. A text from Ben. The car's ready. Meet me at 4:30 a.m. back entrance. I glanced out the window. The light in Elena's room was still on. She was probably online somewhere, spinning her version of the story. I didn't care. Less than 24 hours left. And this time, I wasn't letting anyone stop me. 4 a.m. Charleston was still cloaked in cold mist and sleepy streetlights. I hadn't slept all night. Not from fear, but because I had never felt more awake. I'd dressed by 3, tied my hair back, and packed my bag tightly with everything I needed. Passport, invitation, plane ticket, ID, and a note that read, I'm still your daughter, but I can't live in a cage called love anymore. Please don't try to find me. Aria. I placed the note on my pillow, beside the red thread bracelet Mom tied around my wrist when I was 6. I crept down the stairs. The third step always creaked, so I skipped it like I used to during late-night ice cream raids. Only this time, I wasn't reaching for dessert. I was reaching for freedom. Outside the kitchen window, I saw car headlights flash 3 times. Ben's signal. I placed my hand on the door handle. The sliding glass door wasn't as quiet as I remembered. It clicked. Aria? A familiar voice came from upstairs. I froze. Elena. She flipped on the hallway light and started walking down. Her hair was a mess, her eyes barely open, but as soon as she saw the backpack on my shoulder, her gaze sharpened like a knife. You're really going? Leaving the house? Throwing away the family name? I didn't respond. My hand stayed on the handle. You're so selfish. Do you even know how much Mom cried last night? Dad's about to report your passport canceled. I turned to face her one last time. No one needs to cancel anything. They already tried to crush my dream in other ways. But it's too late, Elena. I'm not the fool who believes your words anymore. She stepped one stair closer, her voice rising. You're not going anywhere. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I opened the door and ran as if I were breaking free from an old shell. Aria! Elena's scream pierced behind me. Dad! Mom! She's running away! Footsteps thundered upstairs. Lights flicked on throughout the house, but I had already sprinted across the dew-soaked lawn and pulled open the car door. Ben hit the gas as soon as I jumped into the seat. Trunk secure? He asked, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. Everything's in, go. Ben made a sharp turn at the first corner. The car glided like a shadow past the silent houses. Behind us, I saw my dad open the front door in his bathrobe, phone in hand. I knew he'd call the police, They'd paint me as a runaway girl rather than accept the truth, that I was just trying to save myself. They'll probably send out patrols, I said, gripping my backpack strap tightly. Ben nodded. You think I'd make it that easy? This car's tracker's already been removed. We'll switch vehicles at point A just like we planned. At 5:10 a.m., we pulled into the parking lot behind a convenience store in Somerville. The second car, a beat-up Ford belonging to Ben's sister, was already parked. I moved my stuff, changed jackets, pulled on a baseball cap, and climbed into the new car. You okay? Ben asked one last time. I took a deep breath. I've never been more okay. At 6:30 a.m., I arrived at Charleston International Airport. The terminal lights were bright, but the lines were short. I stepped up to the check-in desk and handed over my passport. The staff member checked it for a moment, then smiled. Headed to Rome, Sapienza Scholarship student, congratulations, your boarding gate is gate 14. I nodded and walked through security, each step like I was walking over the silent years I had survived. I sat near the window, boarding pass in hand, eyes fixed on the runway where planes took off like arrows toward freedom. My phone buzzed, messages poured in from Mom, Dad, and Elena. What are you doing? We just want you safe. I haven't forgiven you. The police are looking for you. Come home now, this is a mistake. I blocked them all, no hesitation. Except one message, from Ben. Rome is the beginning. Go live the life you've always dreamed of. Passengers on Flight 713 to Rome, please proceed to Gate 14. I stood up, carried everything that was mine, my dreams, my preparation, and a heart no longer afraid of being dimmed. A door opened, and for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. Rome welcomed me with early sunlight and a kind of air I'd never breathed before. True freedom. I stood in the middle of Fiumicino Airport, backpack slung over my shoulder, clutching my scholarship invitation, the red logo of Sapienza University bold at the top. A tall woman with chestnut curls held a sign. Aria Sloan, Global Policy Program. She smiled when she saw me. Welcome to Rome. I'm Julia, your mentor for the program. How was the trip? It was good, I replied, smiling, though my heart was still catching its breath from the journey. She led me to the student residence, a renovated monastery for international scholars. Ivy-covered walls, stone hallways, and citrus trees in the courtyard painted a scene of hope and history intertwined. The program's opening ceremony took place the next afternoon in the school's main hall. I wore a simple navy dress, my hands trembling slightly as I read the schedule. I would be the first speaker on the first panel, discussing how technology influences social policy. I turned to Julia. I thought I was just attending, I didn't think. Your application essay stunned the entire board, she said. You weren't just accepted, you were chosen. They want to see who you really are. I stood on the wooden stage, lights in my eyes, facing hundreds of students and officials from over 30 countries. My heart raced, but my voice held steady. We live in an era where our voices don't just echo in rooms. They travel continents with a tap. But are we using that power to connect? Or to control? 15 minutes later, when I stepped down, the room erupted in applause. A delegate from Canada stood first, then a group from Belgium, then the whole hall. I didn't say anything more than what I believed. But maybe belief in oneself is something the world can't ignore. That night, Julia knocked on my door, her smile barely contained. Someone wants to meet you. It was Massimo Ferrenti, director of the Global Policy Institute. We'd like to invite you to speak at next month's European Youth Alliance Summit, he said. And the school's media team wants to create a short documentary about your journey. I was speechless. I've only been here a day. And you've already left a mark. Not everyone can do that. 3 days later, the first video went live on the Institute's homepage, a short interview in front of the world flags, mixed with clips of me speaking to other students and excerpts from my keynote. By the 4th day, it went viral. An education blogger in New York shared it with the caption, Aria Sloan, American student from South Carolina, breaking through limits and bias to claim the global stage. That night, my inbox exploded. Messages came in from strangers, from young girls, from high school teachers, even from college students who were held back by their families from pursuing the majors they loved. They said they saw themselves in me. I couldn't reply to them all, but I read every single word. And then the inevitable happened. On the Facebook page of the church my family attended, someone shared the video with a caption. "Is this Mr. and Mrs. Sloan's daughter? Why haven't we heard about her before?" The comments started rolling in. I remember Mrs. Sloan saying the girl was finding herself. Maybe she was never lost. Funny how everyone pretends they supported her once she succeeds. I taught at her high school. She was quiet but incredibly focused. No one should judge a person just because they don't seek the spotlight. I opened Instagram, where Elena once posted mocking captions about me. She had just uploaded a new story, showing a screenshot of a headline. "From shadows to spotlight, Aria Sloan, once dismissed by her family, now the face of youth policy for the European Union." Her story caption read only one line. "Everyone loves to play the victim." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Instead, I reposted the article on my now verified program account with a caption. "I'm not performing. I'm living. And this time, I'm not stepping back to let anyone else steal my voice." I never imagined I'd appear on the giant screen in the United Nations Assembly Hall. But on a crisp November morning, I sat among the faces I had only ever seen in the news. Policymakers from Africa, Asia, delegates from UNESCO, UNICEF, all listening intently to the speech of an 18-year-old girl from South Carolina. Not because I was the best, but because I stood up at the right moment. My speech, Technology and the Silenced Voices of Youth, sent waves through the academic and policymaking communities. I broke down how digital platforms can be tools for democratizing information, or weapons to suppress those who don't fit the mold. After the Q&A, a representative from the European Youth Policy Council came up to shake my hand. "You're the living example of what we're trying to represent. We want Aria to become one of our global ambassadors for the Youth Beyond Borders initiative." I heard every word clearly, like bells echoing in the chamber. Sometimes you don't have to beat anyone, you just have to not give up on yourself. And the reward finds you. A week later, my small hometown of West Grove was no longer so peaceful. An investigative article in the Southern Observer ran with the headline, "Behind the Moral Curtain, the Sloans and the Truth About the Daughter They Left Behind." Below it were pictures, me speaking at the United Nations, my family home, and an excerpt from the first speech I ever wrote at 16, the one Elena tore down from the fridge. Soon after, the Gracefield Church Council released a public statement. Elena Sloan will step down from her role as youth group leader during an internal ethics and accountability review. Days later, her Instagram account vanished. Screenshots of her previous stories where she called me a delusional puppet circulated across local Facebook groups. And my parents, once leaders of the church's weekly devotions, were now asked to step away from the ministry board. The official reason? Lack of transparency in family guidance and ethical upbringing. I didn't feel vindictive. Just quiet, like the mask they wore for years had finally cracked. And even they were afraid to face the mirror. As for me, I was invited to speak in Brussels, Nairobi, Seoul, platforms for young leaders. They didn't see me as a runaway girl. They saw a survivor and a fighter who stood tall. The trip to Geneva was the one I remembered most. After a long day of discussions, I sat with other delegates under the eaves of a lakeside cafe, hot chocolate in hand. A girl from Poland asked hesitantly, "Aria, your story is truly inspiring. Have you ever thought about writing it as a book?" I looked up at the starlit sky. Maybe, but if I did, the first chapter would be called, "It Started with a Hidden Passport." That night, back in my hotel room, my phone lit up again. A message from Mom. "We need to talk. Things are chaotic here. Your dad can't sleep. Elena hasn't come out of her room in 3 days." Then one from Dad. "Your mom is falling apart. You've done enough. Come back, let this settle." I stared at the screen in silence. No apology, no accountability, just inconvenience, because I had dared to succeed. I forwarded both messages to Julia, now like an older sister to me. "What do you think I should do?" I asked. She said only one thing. "Don't let delayed remorse pull you backward." I locked my screen. For the first time, I didn't feel sadness or anger, just light, like I'd finally set down a suitcase filled with the wrong expectations. 3 days later, in a policy summit in Geneva, I was handed an official invitation from the United Nations to serve as an honorary youth advisor for global policy development. I signed the document, my hand didn't shake. And in my head, one sentence echoed clearly. They're no longer the yardstick for my success. On a chilly, early winter afternoon in Geneva, I sat alone on the balcony of my hotel suite, wrapped in a brick-colored scarf Julia gave me after my speech at the UN headquarters. Below me, the city sparkled with year-end lights. Inside, my laptop was open to an email from a TED Global representative. "We are honored to invite Aria Sloan to share her story on the TED Talk Spring stage under the theme, 'When You Choose Yourself.'" I stared at the subject line for a long time, not because I was surprised, but because I finally understood something very clearly. I no longer needed anyone's permission to shine. Messages from my family still arrived weekly, like a knock on the door from a place I once called home. "Mom misses you. Dad's been tired. Just come back once. Elena's in therapy. She's changed. You don't have to forgive, just show up." But among hundreds of lines like that, not one said, "We were wrong." And me, after everything, I learned that not every pain is worth healing. I rewrote my TED Talk on a winter night, warm desk light spilling onto the page. I didn't write about revenge, not about brokenness. I wrote about the cost of stepping out of the safety zone others built for you. About the loneliness of being the black sheep, the one who doesn't follow the script, who doesn't live to please, who doesn't bow when dismissed. And then I wrote the line that would later be quoted across hundreds of blogs. Freedom isn't the applause after you've won. Freedom is the moment you no longer need the applause. When my talk was live-streamed from the TED stage in Amsterdam, millions of views poured in within 3 days. Comments came from everywhere: Argentina, Japan, Ghana, France. I was the Aria in my own house. Thank you for saying what I never dared to. Now I understand I wasn't wrong for walking away from a family that didn't value me. The story spread so far that I received invitations from U.S. universities to speak during freshman orientation weeks. And at every stop, at least one person cried, saying they too had been labeled different, weird, or too dreamy to belong. I never told them to forgive. Never told them to forget. I simply said, if you have to trade yourself just to stay, that's not love. That's conditional captivity. I returned to the U.S. just once, that Thanksgiving. But I didn't go home. I visited Ben, the only one who believed in me from the start. He was now running an ed tech startup in Austin. We had dinner, laughed, reminisced about the old Verd plan. You did what most people only dream about, Ben said, raising his glass. I shook my head and smiled. Not because I was special, but because I finally stopped asking for permission to exist. That night, I opened the inbox of my public email, the one where global students sent letters. One message stood out. I'm Emily, 16. I booked my passport appointment today. Thank you, Aria. I'm no longer afraid of being called selfish for choosing myself. I reread that message over and over, like a gentle reminder that my story doesn't end with me. Eventually, during a live interview, a reporter asked, Aria, if you had one message for your family, what would it be? I looked straight into the camera, no anger, no bitterness, just clarity. Thank you for closing the door. That's how I learned to open my own. That night, as evening fell over Piazza Navona, where I now lived, I sat down to write the final page of my first book. Its title, The Black Sheep Learned to Fly, not to seek revenge, not to prove anything to anyone, but to tell the millions out there, you can walk away. You can redefine what family means. And you deserve a life that doesn't require permission. Endings are beginnings. And I, Aria Sloan, have finally become myself. Aria Sloan's story isn't just about escaping a misunderstood family. It's a powerful message to anyone who's ever been labeled as different under their own roof. In a modern world where expectations often disguise themselves as love, Aria reminds us, success isn't about getting even. It's about gaining the freedom to live by your own values. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is love yourself first. What about you? What do you think of Aria's journey? Have you ever experienced something similar? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more moving, thought-provoking stories about family and life.